Welcome back to theCUBE's continuing coverage of the QAD Redzone Champions of Manufacturing Conference here in beautiful Arlington, Texas. I'm here with Ken Fisher, who's the president of Redzone.
Thanks for having me.
And you've brought some guests, Brian Lange and Terry LeDoux. And why don't we start, before we get to you, Ken, with you guys just introducing yourself, a little bit of your background and the companies you're coming from.
My name's Terry LeDoux. I spent 33 years with Nestle Purina Pet Care. I was the Vice President of Digital Manufacturing. So all of my responsibilities focused on manufacturing distribution, all of our IT infrastructure, applications, and how people use them.
Yeah, my name is Brian Lange, currently with the Hershey Company, been in the food industry for about 30 years. Last 10 years have been with the Hershey Company, and then the last 2 years has been essentially building the Hershey Salty Snacks manufacturing division.
And Ken, you're leading up Redzone, right?
Yep. I've been with Redzone for about 10 years, and before that I came out of manufacturing like these gentlemen. So I worked in factories for 15 years before that, in defense and aerospace, food and beverage, and ag.
Great. Well, this is, I think, like our 6th interview today. So we've gone through the products, we had Sanjay here, we got the big strategy. So let's talk a little bit about operationalizing the front line. And I think you guys are bringing the human power, the learnings, the coaching, and all that stuff, and making that into a methodology to help drive what I think you call the connected workforce. So maybe you can unpack that just a little bit, the connected workforce in the context of manufacturing.
That's right. Well, absolutely. Redzone is the #1 connected workforce solution in the world, and we measure that by number of factories and number of users. So 600,000 users, 1,700 factories globally. We started in 2012. Connected workforce is a new category. So it does require some explaining, because there's a lot of confusion out there. It's got elements of MES, it has elements of QMS, it has elements of CMMS, it has elements of LMS. But at its core, it is a single pane of glass for the front lines that provides them a voice. It's got a communication and collaboration element so that they can connect with other teams. The goal is to, in a typical factory, I know it's true when I was working in manufacturing, plant managers and engineers, they make the standard work, they look at the data, they make decisions, and they push it down. Well, Connected Worker flips that upside down and provides the information and the skills and creates the environment for those frontline workers to know if they're winning or losing, know what their top problems are, and have the skills to do the root cause analysis, put the corrective actions in place, and if they do need help from other functions, they can get that help very quickly using technology that they're used to using in their daily life. So many factories, it's like, as soon as they walk in the door, we tell them, put your phone, put your supercomputer into a locker, and here's a 3-ring binder and a piece of paper to go do your work.
Well, I've seen you guys referred to as a people company masquerading as a technology company. Let me ask you guys, Terry, Brian, what's your view of that? You've been working with Redzone.
Yeah, I think that's real, right? When there's 2 things I tell you about Redzone. A lot of people kind of push back on the coaching process, and I come from a big company, and we're really good at implementing software. I mean, really, really good, but not in the way that Redzone coaching works. And that's really with people at the center, and how you interact with people, and then how you get their emotional participation to understand that this is their system. I'm from corporate, and I'm here to help you make do your job better, right? That's gone. So it's real. The operators take off with it in about an hour, and you've hit the right pace when other operators are screaming at you why they don't have Redzone, and then you start seeing operators training other operators in this activity, and it just builds like this big grass fire that spreads across your factory, and from a management perspective, you usually have a hard time keeping up with how fast it wants to move. So it really is about people at the center of digital, and it's produced, the results it's produced for us has been enormous.
Yeah, I would agree. We always say people are competitive advantage, right? We could have the same equipment, same processes, but it really is all about the people, and it's how we get things done is through people, right? The thing about Redzone, and you can measure it several different ways, right? So I take a look at it from different perspectives, but let's just take the learning module, right? So if what we've had to do in the Hershey Salty Snacks division, we are growing so fast. Okay, so I've invested, my company's invested $80 million this year alone in several of our plants to keep up with the demand and grow capacity. Whitestown, Indiana, our facility that makes Skinny Pop popcorn, is literally doubling in size from a capacity and headcount perspective this year, next year. We installed 2 new manufacturing lines this year. We're starting up another kitchen. We're hiring about 120 employees. How do you bring on all of these employees and train them on new pieces of equipment, right? We've used Redzone, right? We've used the learning module. All our training content was put, into the learning module. They're watching videos, all the manuals. So that's how we train our folks, right? We wouldn't be able to do it without a learning module like what's in Redzone. Another example is our Plymouth, Indiana site. We have a lot of Spanish-speaking folks, right? Wonderful, wonderful employees, fantastic, but we had higher attrition with those folks because they didn't have a means to get promoted. We couldn't upscale them because we didn't have training, modules in their native, tongue, right, in Spanish. And so with Redzone, we've been able to create the learning content, we've been able to upskill them, and now they're able to get promoted to higher skill jobs, higher pay, our attrition has gone way down. So there's multiple ways you could look at it from a people company, but it is all about the people and using this technology to keep them engaged and upskill them.
Yeah, I spent the bulk of my career at IBM, so I went through the Lou Gerstner turnaround, and I remember when it was all said and done, he made the statement in one of his books that when I went in, I thought culture was part of the game, but it turned out to be the entire game.
Yep.
And I think what you're building is a continuous improvement culture that scales, right? And you're empowering people to do that. Is that a reasonable summary?
I like to say, typical factory has 5 or 6 people that are Lean Six Sigma green belts, black belts. We create an average factory might have 200 frontline employees between production, quality, and maintenance.
Right.
So let's take those 200, 300 employees and make them your best problem solvers.
And you mentioned green belts, black belts, right? Master black belts. You could do the same thing with your employees with the way Redzone's designed and how you do the process and the systems. They just don't know that they're doing it, right?
Right.
And that's the beauty of it.
Right.
I mean, you think about it, TPM is, Lean, all these different CI improvement programs been around for decades. And we've all struggled to implement them correctly. You get a few factories that stand up well, but you get mixed results across the board. And a lot of it is just the level of burden that's out there on the operator. They need to run the line, but they've got all this other work that, documentation related to these CI systems. So it doesn't hold, and you just keep going through the up and downs. Well, without even saying TPM or Lean, you go in with Redzone, and you start seeing them do everything you wanted them to do under your CI system, and they're happy to do it. They're heavily engaged in doing it, and making recommendations on how you should improve this process as you keep moving forward. So it's just a different way. It's a better way of achieving those types of results with people at its core.
So you two are representing, I think, on the upper end of size in
Yep.
terms of manufacturing companies. And as long as I've been around, breaking down silos has always been a challenge, no matter what industry you're in, but I would imagine it's something that's a continuous process, so interlinked like manufacturing. So how's this all helping break down those silos?
Well, I think we both have, good examples. Right? I always say that, there's no silos in salty, right? That's just my mantra, right? And we're all playing in each other's sandbox, but I think we've mentioned transparency, right? All the data is visible, right? It's that data democratization. I'll talk about, I talked about all the capital and all the new lines that I've had to start up. I think earlier there was a question about, what kind of benefits have you seen? And people talk about OE improvements, and we're just trying to keep our heads above water, right? Just in how fast we're growing and trying to meet demand, right? When I talk about how fast we're growing, our Dots pretzel business year over year is 20 to 30% growth, right? And so with what we've being able to do, right, and when we deployed the Redzone modules, especially specifically the learning that I talked about to train our folks, and then the productivity, we've had extremely aggressive startup curves, right? To go from week 1 to week 4, and week 4 is 100% run rate, being able to use the real-time data, everybody, engineering, operations, everybody using that data to do real-time problem solving and addressing the issues in order to get started up as quickly as possible, leveraging these assets and meeting our customer demand. But also too, like engineers, I've got engineers that are all over the country and they can't be everywhere at once, right? Well, I got them iPads, they all got Redzone on, and they're with the employees, remotely helping address issues.
I'd say that we are on the upper end, right? We have large factories. And I always said, when you get into these factories, you get out on the floor, you have all these different departments. You've got maintenance, you've got quality, you've got batching, processing, packing, warehouse, and they all kind of become little neighborhoods, right? So processing can have a great day, packing's having a tough time, warehouse is mad because packing's not delivering any product, packing's blaming processing. After you implement Redzone and you have this visibility to how the factory, not just my area, is performing, that changes from neighborhoods to one community that now gets behind, well, we got to win the day for the factory. Because just because I'm having a great day doesn't mean we did what we needed to do as a community. And you'll see rally cries come out from processing saying, hey, we need to get some people in packing. If you're available, please go help packing. Let's figure out what it is, get maintenance, get QA involved. So it was a dramatic change from my perspective to see those neighborhoods and those shift differences just kind of melt away with this tool, because that communication within the Redzone tool is just frictionless, right? It's not, they're not, picking up a phone or, trying to get hold of the supervisor who's got to go chase the maintenance person, who's got to go chase their manager. It just all happens right there. I mean, and because everyone can see everything, it's now the whole factory knows type of thing.
So Ken, how do you guys balance empowering the individuals versus empowering the team or the organization, right?
Absolutely.
There could be some dynamics there, right?
No. It's not black and white. Like many things in life, there is no one right way. It's not just all about the individual. That can certainly drive the wrong behaviors, but individuals really matter. So you need to account for the individual. So I would say we start with team goals. So when we're configuring the system, when we're designing the software, when we think about goals, it's always about the team. We've been asked many, many times, like, I want to know the OEE of Bill. I want to know the top downtime for Sally. And you can dig in it, but we're not going to create a first-class experience to make it easy for engineers and managers to go do that, because it will end up, people will look at the tool as if it's a stick and not a carrot. Mm-hmm. And everyone knows, right? It's 3 heads are better than 1. Well, if 3 heads are better than 1, 10 heads are better than 1, 100 heads are better than 1. And it's these cross-functional teams working together for common goals. Right. So we do build that into the platform. However, what happens when that person is given an iPad? Well, that individual human, when they're given that iPad or they're given that Android device, that $1,000 device, we're not, it's in a case and it's brand new, and they're handed that on their first day, or when they get to the line, they feel like, oh, my company's investing in me. And when they log in, it says, well, give us a picture of yourself or an avatar. Mm-hmm. What language do you speak? Right. So then I can configure my environment for me as an individual, but my goals are for a team.
Right. Yeah, it's more of an art than a science, I think. Yeah. I've always said, my management days, that organizations don't do things, people do. Yeah. But organizations that work well create that multiplier effect for everybody, right? And it's a tough line. So let me ask you about ROI, sort of the ROI flywheel that allows you to drive change at a faster pace, yet retain the quality and all that. I know that's a big focus for you guys, and I'm sure that you love that too, right? ROI, drive change.
That's right. Redzone's about outcomes. If you're doing something, if you're implementing a new system or doing a change program, whatever the case may be, the key to success is that everyone agrees that this is important for the people, important to the business. So outcome is first. And for the productivity module, which is what everybody implements first, that outcome is productivity, which is getting either more product out in the same amount of time, or the same amount of product in less time. And on average, it's 26%, but it depends on, are companies starting with high levels of efficiency, a lot of continuous improvement? Are they just embarking on continuous improvement? So there is varying levels of productivity uplifts, but the average is 26%. But the productivity flywheel is 3 components. It's higher productivity, higher employee engagement, and lower employee turnover. And I like to think about it. Now, we have done the analysis, so we do know that there is a correlation. It is heavily correlated. Higher engagement, higher employee retention, higher productivity. These things are correlated. The bigger one is, the bigger all 3 are. The smaller one is, the smaller 3 are. What we haven't done the analysis, and it's very difficult to do, is, well, what comes first, chicken or egg? And it may not be. Most people think, oh, well, you got to get the employee engagement first. What we believe, and we will do the study, is it's actually the productivity first.
Yeah,
when people are when people feel more productive, then they're more engaged. When they're more productive and more engaged, they don't want to leave.
Right.
You know, I like to think of it as a sports team. You could think of it as the Kansas City Chiefs, or you could think of the Patriots of the early 2000s. They won more. They were more productive.
Yeah.
When you win, you come to practice. You want to practice harder. You also don't want to leave to go to another team, even if they're going to offer you another $1 million or whatever. I'd rather win a Super Bowl than make an extra 100,000 or whatever going to another team. That's the flywheel effect that we create on the shop floor. But would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that and experience with it.
Well, I think that's real, and I think productivity is first. We talk about the transparency and the visibility and the engagement, right? But when people, you give them that tool and they have the ability to see very clearly what they're contributing, it makes them want to contribute more, which ends up being productivity. The side effect is you've got more engagement, and they want to come to work, which means I end up with lower turnover. Right. So starting with productivity, to me, is showing them, hey, you can win, you are important, and you can contribute to how we win.
I'm a little mixed on this.
Okay.
I've made a career going around and turning plants around. That's what I've done, for many, many years. I'm going to say out of necessity for the business, it always has to be productivity, right? You got to get productivity out. You have to hit, your service. You got to hit your profitability, right? If I could do it my way, I'd always start with people, though, right? Because you hear what you're saying is, let's all get all these people together and let's, we're going to go somewhere, but then we're going to get there and we're not going to know each other, right? And then you're going to be fighting and arguing and everything else along the way, right? And so to me, if I had my druthers, I'd really focus on the people aspect first. But out of business necessity, it usually does boil down to productivity first.
That's the art part of the science, right? Yep. Art and science. So help me tie together the 90-day implementation plan that we've heard a lot about. You got Champion Pace, you got Champion AI, the adaptive ERP, Redzone. Like, pull all this together.
Very good. Because we're about outcomes, it's not just about the technology or the software. So if you're going to implement a technology, it needs to change behavior. It needs to change something material on the shop floor in order for you to get the results. So since our inception at Redzone, for each one of our modules, our productivity module, compliance module, reliability module, learning module, each one has a 90-day coaching program. Mm-hmm. And that 90 days is not coincidental. So there's science behind the 90 days, which is, if you think 3 or 4 shifts, you're able to touch each one of those shifts over that 90-day period, and at the end of the period, you've changed a behavior. It takes, if you're an individual trying to change your behavior, there's a rule of 28 days, but when you're trying to change the behavior of a team or of a large facility, then that 90 days provides you 28 touch points across those factories. But you've implemented a lot of technology in your time, and how did you view the coaching program's impact on the end result?
It was critical for us. We've implemented a lot of systems and really good at it, large systems, but it was in the manner of project management. 1,000 tasks, names, times, project managers following up with people, lots and lots of training. So on our first site, we noticed our teams were going in and starting to override the Redzone team, and myself and another colleague, we had to put everybody on the phone and said, okay, stop it. got to pull back, we've paid for the coaching, we want you to learn how they're going to coach. And that coaching was very different in the sense that it wasn't, we're here from, corporate, and we're going to make you do your jobs better. That's what we're about, change management. It was more about asking the help of the operator in their coaching process. Hey, we got this new tool, we're going to try it out, can you help us? So it was just a very different approach. Wasn't somebody with a checklist watching over them. There was a plan behind it, but it's not visible to the people on the floor in that sense. And it wasn't as rogue and rigorous, I should say, to getting that done, which made it fun for the operator. Because any of the other implementations wasn't fun for anybody. So, I hear a lot of people complaining, they call me and say, hey, you did Redzone, do you really have to do this coaching? And I'm like, you'll be crazy if you don't do the coaching. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I've seen Redzone implemented wrong, had to go in and stop a factory where we had coaching and the coaching was fighting one of our factories. We had to go in at 30 days, stop the project and say, okay, starting over. Because you guys are doing this top-down digitization of total performance management, and that's not what this is about. We need it to come from the bottom up. So you got to do the coaching if you really want to end up in the right spot at 90 days.
No, I would agree. So the coaching, not only is it a differentiator of Redzone to some of the other competitors, it's a competitive advantage, but I think it's absolutely essential, right? If you want something to stick, if you want people to grow with it, if you want them to adopt it and own it, the coaching is absolutely essential, and I know Angie, I just told her, go buy more coaching sessions, right? We got another 6 months, in 2026, because I want this to stick. I want it to, I think I talked to you, I want to make sure in 2026, all 8 manufacturing plants in Salty are leveraging it and getting the most out of Redzone that we possibly can.
How are you using AI actually, Champion AI specifically, to make the coaching better, and be able to scale it?
I would flip that around, and we're going to use coaching to make the AI experience better. Mm-hmm. So as we implement factories with Champion AI, and we've got the machine learning and the generative interface and the agentic workflows where Champion AI goes and carries out tasks on behalf of the front lines, like go create an emergency work order for them, or go communicate to the warehouse that our changeover is going to happen 2 hours earlier, so let's start prepping components for the changeover. Our coaches come in, and as they're doing the implementation, they'll teach the operators how to do, I hate to use the term prompt engineering because that makes it sound overly complex. It's how do you interact best with the generative experience to get the best expected outcome. Part of that they're going to learn just by doing, but that will be key in the coaching program to ensure they get up to speed faster and it's helpful faster.
I forgot for a moment, you're a people company masquerading as a technology company.
But can I make one more point about the coaching, right? So we deployed Redzone in 5 plants in 12 months. There's no way that we could have done that without the coaching, right? And so when we talk about speed of scale, scalability, speed of deployment, all of this, you couldn't do it without those folks.
We did 15 in 12 months. If you take out the 5 months where we needed approval to continue after the proof of concept. And the other thing important about coaching is, I don't want people to misunderstand, this isn't just coaching operators and team leaders. There's a change for the management team. I would honestly say the coaching is harder for the management team because the operators take to it and the team leaders take to it right away. This thing's doing something for them. Yeah. But for the management team, the leadership team at your site, this changes how you interact with your operators, right? It kind of flips, instead of plan and control top down, it's a little bit of servant leadership that you got to get used to. I mean, you're getting assigned items off the factory floor that you need to deliver back. And that's different, right? Because, we all already have full-time jobs, right? So you have to, it's a difficult change to say, okay, what of these tasks that I was doing before, now that I have Redzone, I don't really need to do, that I can take that time and put towards servicing the needs of what's coming from the factory floor. And that was a difficult change at a lot of factories for us.
You say that's an interesting, it is, right? So if you're empowering your frontline employees, we talked about a lot of times in our plants, the best operator gets promoted. Now they're the line leader, the supervisor, right? Well, if they're not good at leading people or supervising, they always go back to,
Right.
what they felt comfortable with was kind of all these things happening on the line, right? Well, it's like, okay, the frontline employees have it now, right? They're empowered, they're doing it right. Now these folks need to actually go grow into their roles and learn how to lead, right?
That's very true. I would agree 100%.
So we just got a couple minutes left before we have to wrap here, but I always like to ask this question. We're sitting here 2 years from now. What are we going to be talking about? What do you think is going to be different a couple years from now?
I mean, a big part of our investment is AI, and I would say on average, not for every factory, but on average, Redzone helps manufacturers by design go from, hey, I came into the Monday morning, 6 a.m. production meeting, looking at the weekend's data. We missed our targets. D shift is back on Thursday, so let's set up an action item for D shift to do a root cause analysis. Then the action items on that root cause analysis are out 3 weeks from now. So for a month from now, we're solving problems that may never even happen again. Well, Redzone helps us solve those problems during the shift utilizing our highly capable frontline teams. Next, we're going to be talking about how Champion AI helps those frontline employees solve tomorrow's problems before they happen.
Okay, forward thinking.
And I believe that's I believe that's where we're really headed, right? Operators today, even with Redzone in place and other predictive tools that we have, you're still reacting to problems, right? We're always a little bit behind the 8 ball. No one's perfect. I mean, all these tools are helping, and we've gained reliability, but in the future, in the next 2 years, I'm hoping to see that most of my time is spent on continuous improvement and solving problems that haven't happened yet. That's the best use of the operator. And if you think about the people that have to come into work, they're going to be much happier, right? Because I'm not fighting a line. Everything's going according to plan. How do I make the future plan better, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I could add much more, but we talk about solving problems that haven't happened yet. I don't even think they're not even going to be problems, right? Because they're going to be addressed proactively, right? We're really going to be talking about growing our business, right? And that's what I think the main message is. It's just we're going to continue to grow because we're operating so well.
Mic drop.
Yeah, now this has been a great conversation. I think very insightful. So, Ken, Brian, Terry, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And for all you, we will have continuing coverage of the QAD Redzone Champions of AI conference here in Arlington. Stay tuned. We'll be back very shortly.